This episode is brought to you by Simple Plan and their life-changing inspirational quote. I'm trying to forget that. I'm addicted to you. And I want it. And I need it. I'm addicted to you.
Welcome to the Stephan Dyer podcast, my people.
Hello, my people! I am so excited for this episode with my friend Izzy Piyale-Sheard, aka Izzy. First of all, he's on 3 of my top podiums in life. First, he's one of the kindest people I've ever met. Second, he's one of the most positive people I've ever met. The most contagious laugh I've ever heard. And third, and this is where I think you may derive even more benefits, more value. One of the best career coaches I've ever met. I took his class, life-changing. Not just resume building, but interviewing job. I call him the King Midas of job searching. Every application he touches becomes a job. He is incredible. I'm going to say his website right now. You can see it in the notes, but it's joinclearcareer.com. joinclearcareer.com. And man, this was one of the most beautiful, vulnerable conversations that we've had in 17 years of friendship since we went to boarding school. We went to high school in small town Lennoxville, Quebec, to our beloved BCS. And I'm just really happy that this happened. Izzy, I love you, man. All right, my friends, let's enjoy it. Leave your comments. Tell us what you think. And I know that you're going to thoroughly enjoy this. Here we go.
Welcome to the Stephan Dyer podcast. I have here the unbreakable, the unmistakable, the highly capable Izzy Piyale-Sheard. How are you, brother?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited. I know we've been talking about this for a while now, and finally we're here, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, man. Listen, I really admire you. When the idea of the podcast came up and I was talking to my wife, who's the producer, I'm like, Izzy has to be on. You were always on top of my list, and here's why. I said it in the email, in my email invitation. You are kind, vulnerable, which I love, positive, funny, smart, and literally everyone is better for having you in their lives. I don't know a more positive and kind person than you. And my first question is, where do you get this kind, positive, joie de vivre from? Is it just you? You also your sister, your parents? What is it? Where do you get it from?
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably a combination of my parents, our family. We're all kind of funny, happy types of people. So I think there's a lot of it that came from that. I find that I really like to be happy and make myself happy. And that's not to say that I don't have times where I'm depressed and sad and things like that, which is a side that a lot of people don't see. But if I smile and I do things that make me feel happy, it kind of manifests itself as well.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I wanted to touch upon that because as a comedian and the way I come across on social media and in my shows, people think that I'm happy and laughing all day, which in some ways I am, in a lot of ways I am. But there is a side that not a lot of people get to see except our wives, your wife, my wife, and our closest inner circle.
Right.
Do you think the happiest people are also the most depressed or because I think of, and this is not, but all comedians are in some way messed up in their heads. A lot of them are introverts. I see Robin Williams and Jim Carrey. They are very sad sometimes inside, and I don't know if you have to in some ways go through lots of hard things to be able to be a comedian, or if people who laugh a lot also have a dark side. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. Like for me, I've thought about this a lot because uh, there is this major perception of all of my friends and everyone that I'm just like happy and bubbly all the time, which is really not true. And when I'm with people, that's when I'm happy. People give me energy.
Mm.
But I have my own problems, and we've gone through lots of things in our lives, and I think one of the problems that I have sometimes in my personal relationships is that sometimes I feel like a burden. I don't want to burden people with my problems, with my sadness, with my issues, and make them unhappy. And that's an issue, right? Because in order to help yourself, you actually need to talk about those things. So
Yeah.
it's been really important, and it's been something I've had to work on over the last couple of years, to be open, to be more vulnerable with the people that I'm closer with, and to have deeper conversations that are not always fun and happy.
I think I think you're really good at that because you just make people comfortable and want to share. And it's not like there's different types of people who always appear happy, and it's the one that's like, no, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And they never want to get vulnerable. And then I think that
Right.
there's you where you're like smiling, like you're laughing a lot, but at the same time it's like a very small tweak that you do, and then your friendly voice comes on, and it's like super easy to share, which
Mm,
which I think you've been doing really well. It's ever since I know you. But what I relate to you is what you said, that I don't want to burden people, and I think I never thought of it, but I think that happens to me too. And I think that I will always want people to see the best version of me when I'm with
mhm.
them. And it's not the fact that I'm being like false or fake. It's just
Yeah.
that I want to be the best with them in that specific moment, and have a great time. Like it's almost like you only live once. Why should we cry if we can have a great time right now?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really hitting the nail on the head. It's not that you're trying to be disingenuous. You're just, you're trying to have a good time. You're trying to be fun, and it's kind of the same with social media a lot of the time these
Yeah.
days. Like people aren't trying to be fake on Instagram and things like that. They're just trying to, capture these memories that they love about their lives, rather than post all these like all the bad sides of their lives. We
Yeah.
don't really love to take pictures when we're having a terrible time. We like to take pictures when we're having a great time and share that, and like, look, I'm having such a great time. And that's what kind of leads to this problem in society with social media, where it's a highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's one of the things that we all have to be mindful of.
I've been kind of critical about the highlight reel, but I do it as well. And it's not that I've been critical of people posting the best things, but I've been more careful with social media because I noticed, especially years ago, 5 years ago, three
Hmm.
years ago, that every time I would go on Instagram, let's call it from 1 to 10, I would go in as an 8 of like mood, like feeling pretty good. And I would always leave at an 8 or lower, come out as a
Yeah.
4, come out as a 6. And then I did a cleanse. I just unfollowed a bunch of people who either made me feel insecure, and it's not their problem, it's my problem, or made me feel sad or anxious, or
Hmm.
I would compare myself to them and just feel horrible about what I've accomplished, not grateful. So I deleted Facebook from my phone,
Hmm.
Twitter from my phone, LinkedIn from my phone, Snapchat, which I didn't even use anymore. But I have Instagram, but I'm very intentional about it. I know that you deleted or took a hiatus from either Instagram or Facebook for a couple of years. How was that for you, and why did you do it?
Yeah, it was the same for me. I did a cleanse. At one point in one of my previous jobs, I felt so burnt out, and I just had so many different platforms that people were trying to connect with me on, and I had problems with saying no to things, and just like uh, being so available for so many people, that made it really difficult for me to just manage all of that. So at one point I took a vacation with one of my close friends, Armand, and we decided to go on a trip to Vancouver, to BC. And it was really fun. We rented a camper van and it had like a pop-up tent on the top of it. And we just drove around and hiked all these different mountains in BC for 10 days. And I really wanted to be completely disconnected during that time. I wanted to be completely unavailable. I wanted to be just take all of that in. And so I did what you're saying exactly. I removed all of the social media from my phone. I told my family and my friends that I'm going to be unavailable, pretend like I'm, not around at all. And so I won't be reachable. I had my phone with me just so I could, use Google Maps and get around and things like that. But I had no social media, and I got like a handful of texts from a couple of people. But it was so good to be unreachable on WhatsApp, on Facebook Messenger, on Instagram, on Snapchat, on LinkedIn, on literally everything. And I found that it was so great to be able to connect with my friend on that trip and not be distracted by anything. And that was really, really powerful for me. And when I got back, I never reinstalled all of those apps. I had them, I stopped using Facebook entirely for a couple of years until I needed to bring it back for business. And even now I've noticed that people aren't using Facebook as much anymore anyway. So I'm thinking of just retiring it entirely. And then Instagram I didn't use for many years, which was really nice for me as well, because it's the same kind of thing. I always felt like I went in and then I came out a little bit less happy and my mood would be down. And I also had this problem of like obsessed with if people are liking my things. I felt like if people didn't do that, I didn't feel validated. And that's an awful feeling, because why should my worth be dependent on other people's validation? And it's not even like it's not even that they're trying to invalidate me. It's just it's not coming across their feed. It's not even under their control. Like, and I'm coming out of it feeling like crap. And it was enough. I was done with it. So I don't post personal things on any platforms really anymore, for that reason, because I don't want to feel that external validation. And, one of the creepy things that happened when I got rid of Facebook is, for weeks, if not months, my hands, when I would go on my computer and go on my web browser, my hands would automatically type in Facebook.
FA.
Yeah. And I would realize that, like, I closed down my account, so it would just go, your account is closed. But it was so creepy to see that my hands would just like do it automatically by themselves. It was it was just messed up.
Yeah, do you think there's a middle ground where we could have social media and be present? Because I've done it too, and I've had equivalent times, not as long a trip as yours, but I've had like 1 or 2 days or a couple of vacations. I especially loved it when I wouldn't have roaming in Costa Rica or when I went to visit my dad in Florida, because it was like I'm not around and I would be more present. Do you think there's a middle ground that we can reach, like still be on all social media and not care if you have any likes and yet be super present wherever we are?
I do think there's a middle ground. I think it's hard to get there. It takes a lot of mindfulness around how social media is affecting us. And I think just now people are starting to realize, the effects that it's having on our mental health, on our behavior, on all kinds of things. And, I significantly urge people who have never tried it to just try it for like a week. The world's not going to fall apart if you're not on Instagram for a week. It'll still be there. It'll be fine. And I promise you that you'll come out of it feeling better than you did when you went in.
I've done something similar. I've talked about it in my previous episodes, where I deleted these apps like I mentioned, and then I only check my email at 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Sometimes I even forget to check my email, and I
Mhm.
check it at like 6 p.m. And you know what I found out? I'm not that important.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna die.
Yeah.
Nobody's waiting for my replies. And if they are, like, if it's urgent, don't call me. Like,
Yeah.
they know where to reach me. And if not, then it's not that important. And
Right.
now I can tackle these like 13 emails at once, or delete most of them because most of them are not even that important.
Mhm.
And instead of logging in 27 different times, hitting refresh for no particular reason. And then I've done the same with Instagram. Sometimes I even go in, just post and then leave. And I've started doing lots of posts about my podcast where some may get like 5 likes, some may get like 40 likes, zero comments, but I don't even care that much anymore. I'm like, what
Yeah.
am I committed to? I'm committed to sharing the stuff that I care about, whether or not it's like, oh, like less than 1% of your followers like that, nobody who the fuck cares? Like, I
Yeah.
think I'm more happy posting what I love, and then I'm gonna create my tribe in the long run than whether or not it's becoming viral or whatever. I mean, if it has
Mhm.
engagement, incredible. But if not, um, I care about other things. I'm not just attached to that.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Well, I think one of the things that I found interesting is as I started to do that with social media, that actually trickled down into other parts of my life too, where I found that I was just always on for work as well. Where I would
Yeah.
have my Slack open, I would have my calendar, my emails, and then my boss would email me on a Sunday, or I would get like a calendar notification on the weekend for a meeting that's happening on Wednesday. And the problem with that is as soon as you get that, as soon as you see it, your mind turns on work mode for like sometimes hours, and then you're not resting. So I then decided that it was really important for me to turn off completely when I'm not at work. So I put in place a habit where every day after work, I will sign out of my work email from my phone and my computer. I will sign out of Slack from my work and my computer. And I will even sign out from the calendar so that it doesn't, I can't think about work at all. There's nothing, unless somebody actually calls me on my phone for some kind of emergency. But most of the time, it's just because people are doing their thing and some people want to work on the weekends and stuff like that. Fine. I don't want to do that. I need time to rest in between things, especially as someone who has a job and, I do things on the side. I have my own business. I need that separation.
Yeah, setting boundaries is such an underrated productivity hack that
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible, because the traditional old school methodology or way of thinking is the more you do in the less amount of time, you win in life. And no,
Right.
you burn out in life.
100%.
Obviously, you need to be aware. It doesn't mean like you're gonna sign off for the whole fucking week and then not accomplish anything, but
Yeah.
it's it's saving up time, and it's freeing up time for what matters. And if you have your priorities clear, family, I know you love to do your walks, and that was our favorite, my wife and my favorite part of the pandemic. I commented on your tweet where our favorite part of 2020 was the walks that we did because we couldn't go anywhere, and we
Mm-hmm.
would reconnect, we would talk, we would listen to each other, no technology, and
Yeah.
and it was beautiful. I want to talk to
Yeah.
you about your heritage. You were born in Turkey,
Yep.
and you immigrated to Quebec, small town Lennoxville, Quebec, where years after we would go to high school together, to boarding school.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like a fish out of water in Quebec? Or because you moved at such a young age, you were able to learn English, French, obviously spoke Turkish. And my understanding is that you speak like 5 or 6 languages. Did you ever feel like a fish out of water?
I think I didn't feel like a fish out of water culturally. I mean, I think at one time or another, everybody in high school feels like a fish out of water, and it was more along the lines of that. But I came to Canada when I was 2, and my dad grew up here.
Oh, okay.
And my mom is from Turkey. So the funny thing is, my dad is half Turkish, so his mother is Turkish, and his father's Canadian.
Oh, okay.
And my mom's side is fully Turkish. So I'm kind of like 3/4 Turkish. And so when my parents met, my dad had gone to Turkey to do some work there with some family, and that's where my mom and dad met. And then we decided to move to Canada, and that's when I was about 2, I think. So I basically spent all of my life here, and my first language was Turkish. My parents like talked to me only in Turkish for a long time, and I didn't know any English at all. And then and then I started picking up English just through TV and like through school and things like that. And then my parents put me in French school, so French was the next language that I learned, and it wasn't like French immersion, it was actually French school.
Mhm.
And I remember my first day in French school. That's when I felt like a fish out of water, because I literally didn't speak a lick of the language, and I was trying to get around, and nobody understood what I was saying or what. I didn't understand anything, and it was terrifying.
How do you pronounce
But
your
yeah,
name in Turkish?
Iskender.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
speak.
It's kind of it's a funny name, because the first 2 parts of my name are Turkish, and the last part of my name is English. So it's Iskender Piyale-Sheard. It's just a
Same with
weird
mine.
thing.
It's like Stephan Dyer, which kind of sounds American, and then it's
Yeah.
Garcia Pacheco. So like, what
Oh,
happened?
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And at BCS, they would always butcher it, and they would be like Garcia Pache. I don't know. Maybe maybe I wrote it wrong one day. I don't know.
Right.
Talking about BCS, we went to boarding school in Quebec, and just to give people a context of what it was like, it was a 250 student, international students, a lot of them, in the middle of nowhere, small town Quebec called
Mhm.
Lennoxville, the Eastern Townships. And my wife likes to compare it to Harry Potter. We would go to chapel in the morning, and everyone in uniforms, like a suit, a tie, gray pants, blue suit,
Blazer.
blazer. It was mandatory to play sports. The boarding students, the boarders, would have to sleep in their own residences. Each residence had their own name, and there was competition between the residences, and like a couple times throughout the year. We would all eat in the same dining hall, and you would be together for the whole year. And that was my first time, obviously, when I was 15, 16 in grade 10, when I met you, and my first time being alone, really, because before I had always lived with my parents. What impact did BCS have on you? And when you look back, are you grateful? Are you excited? Would you have done things differently? I know that some of our best friends are still from BCS. Like Charlie was my
Mhm.
roommate. He's one of my best friends. We're really close. And I have other friends that I still hang out with. What impact did it have on you?
Yeah, for sure. I think I mean, obviously in your formative years there's a lot of impact that you get from high school and from your relationships there and things like that. I was a day student, so I wasn't one of the people living in the dorms. I was going back home every day and things like that. And we had our own kind of clique of friends, and there was a lot of great things there. I think everybody goes through lots of different challenges in kind of building their identity. In high school, I was someone who was very insecure. I think that was one of the big things for me. So I had a hard time. And I think if I was to go back today, I would do things a little bit differently, knowing what I know now, where, like people make fun of you for things, and people, tease you, and kind of there's some bullying goes on here and there. Um, And I think that as a result of my insecurity, I kind of fell into doing that stuff back to other people. And I, looking back, don't love some of the things that I did. And so, it's nice to see now, like 10 years later, more than 10 years now, it's what, we 2007, 13, 14 years or something like that when we finished. But, I think it's nice to see when we went for our reunion that like everybody is kind of totally different people. It's been a long time since then. And even some of the people that, you weren't as nice to or didn't have such a close relationship with, it's a totally different relationship now that you're adults and things are kind of just fine. These are just people.
It's funny that you say that you kind of regret saying a couple things, because I never saw you say those things, or maybe don't remember, but I always go back to one of my favorite quotes, which is Maya Angelou, and people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And you always made me feel like we're just here to have fun, like you're always positive, kind, like a super contagious laugh. I don't remember how many classes we shared, but I would never think of you as someone who either bullied or was mean to people. And we all had our own insecurities, but I'm willing to bet that the majority of people, if not all of us, remember you in like a smiling, laughing, and just like super kind and positive.
Yeah, I think that's probably relatively true. I think the things that I regret are mostly on the defensive side. Like when I felt like I was being threatened or attacked, or I mean, not like physically, but when I felt insecure, I would feel defensive and then I would kind of lash back. And, now I'm 32 and only now am I starting to realize that that is a trait. Like I feel defensive when I am backed into a corner, and that is something that I'm actually starting to work on now. When I feel insecure, when I feel like someone is angry with me, then I get defensive and I lash back out. And that's something that is an issue with me that I have to work on.
It's good that you have the self-awareness now, because in one of these courses that I've taken on personal growth called Landmark, in the second level or the advanced course, they teach you, or they help you discover your own defense mechanism that you use as an excuse whenever you feel threatened. And mine is, I don't need you guys. Whenever I'm attacked or I'm criticized for my work or whatever, I immediately come into like, I don't need you guys. Like I've been living by myself with divorced parents. I've like lived in 4 or 5 different countries. I went to school by myself, went to U of T by myself, blah, blah, blah. Like where have you been in all, like, I don't need you guys. But then now, obviously that it's whenever I feel threatened. But now that I know it, I can step away from that, see myself in that light and be like, okay, chill, go relax, and then come back, read the email again, or say thank you. I'll get back to you on that, or just take it. And the other thing that I discovered is that it's never personal.
Yeah.
It's never about you. It's never like they're criticizing me. And that's allowed me to breathe and step back and then just move ahead.
Yeah, it's the same with me. I think I have spent a long time in my life taking things very personally. And, most of the time it's not personal. I'm now starting to be okay with someone being angry at me and not like keeping it in my chest. If someone's angry at me, well, that's okay. That's, it might not even be about me. It might be because they, had a fight with somebody, and then they're just having a crappy day and, they're angry. So they're taking it out on me. So like literally just a couple weeks ago, I was working with a therapist and they were telling me this, where instead of just keeping it in my chest, just take it, like accept what they're saying and then like let it go. Like accept it and then just throw it in the garbage, because it's not necessarily even directed at you and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. My friend Danny Silva told me that like 8 years ago. It's like, it's never personal. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Mhm.
But I'm like, yeah, it's true. With the years, I've started to believe her. After she said it, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe. And then 6 months, a year later, I was like, yeah, it's true. You know, in 2016, in our 10-year high school reunion, like when 10 years after we graduated, we went back to BCS. And I wanted to tell you this because I never told you, but I remember being at the Lion at the bar that is in the small town. And I remember we
The
were
one
like,
bar.
it was like a pub, whatever, you know, like a canteen. What would we call it? Like a pub?
Yeah, I think it's a pub. I'm just saying there was only one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's only one. Yeah. And I remember like us being like sitting down with our friends, like Caitlin, Elizabeth. I don't remember who else was there right now. And we were just talking. You were there, obviously. Fernando, my wife was there, and Christian, yeah. And I remember telling you that I was gonna quit. I was thinking about quitting my job in the next year, and I was like, what's the word in English? Like soundboarding, or like what's?
Yeah, I think that's right. Like, yeah, I think that's right.
Testing the water.
Using me as a soundboard. Yeah,
using you as a soundboard, and I wouldn't tell that many people because I was scared of telling people, and their immediate reaction would be like, "Do not do it."
Right.
And I remember telling you because you made me feel comfortable, and you were so fucking supportive. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, it meant so much to me. I never told you, but it's like those
that's
little
awesome.
things that, while maybe your reaction wasn't going to change the trajectory of my decision, it was just so good to me at that time. I needed validation, and I needed to just someone to be like, bet on you, bet on yourself. Like, it's going to be fine. Whatever happens, it's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the only person I had told, obviously, was my wife, then girlfriend, and a couple other people maybe, but nobody else, because I was kind of scared. I wasn't even that good. Maybe I had like one good show or a couple good shows. And this was like a wild idea after like my success at the bank at such a young age. So I just wanted to thank you for that, because we need to recognize the positive in the world, you know?
That's awesome. I'm so glad you shared that with me. I had no idea that was a thing. I don't remember. I mean, now that you mention it, I remember having a conversation about it, but I don't remember having that kind of impact.
Yeah, it was very special. We have a lot of things in common. Obviously, we went to school together in high school. Then we went to U of T together. And your career after that has been astounding to me, because all the things everything that you've accomplished by sheer will and being kind and vulnerable. Sometimes people want to achieve by being perfect, but it's so draining and exhausting. So we spoke about this, and I just want to read a couple of things that you did that I really admire and love. So after you graduated U of T, you worked at U of T as an assistant program coordinator for the International Foundation Program, which was basically like a bridging program for ESL students who were coming into U of T, but they didn't have the adequate English. Yep. So it was like a conditional acceptance. And I remember just seeing you, whenever I saw you there a couple of times, like so happy. Then we had like a bunch of mutual friends, and oh yeah, Izzy. And I'm like, who's Izzy? Oh, and I'm like, oh, he's a Scander. And then I think that's when Izzy was born. And then out of nowhere, I see you like touring Asia with this company called Hacker Paradise. You were their first employee, and you were basically organizing international retreats for remote workers. So basically you were setting up like little co-working spaces around the world You went to Asia, 7 different countries. There were mainly software developers, entrepreneurs, business owners. And then after doing that, you talked to some people at Lighthouse Labs, an incredible company. And you worked there for 2 years. It was a coding school. And this is when I think the legend of Izzy in job seeking, the King Midas of job seeking, was born. You cold emailed these people or cold called them, and they created the job for you pretty much.
Yeah.
How was that?
That's right.
And how did they create a job for you? What was the call like? What was the email like? What happened?
Yeah, so at the time, I was trying to figure out how I could get the same kind of community feel that I got from my previous job at Hacker Paradise. What I really liked about that previous job is basically we set up international retreats all around the world, and we would, be with a group of 20, 30, 40 people and just go and live and work in like Taipei or in Tokyo or in, Barcelona for like 1 or 2 months at a time. And I learned so much in that time from all these people who were entrepreneurs, software developers, things like that. And we would have all these great weekly talks where we went around and tried to do something called the reciprocity ring, where we would have to ask for help with one thing every Monday. And you would go around, you have to ask for help for one thing, and somebody else would offer to help you with that. And that was really cool. I wanted that kind of community environment in my next job. So I was like, okay, how can I do this? Where can I find this kind of thing when I come back to Canada? And so I thought of co-working spaces. So I started reaching out to a number of different co-working spaces, and I gave them basically some of my accomplishments, some of the cool things that I did, and emailed them saying, hey, look, I organized communities and co-working spaces in like 7 different countries in Asia and Europe, and I'd love to come and build this community with you. Here are some ideas that I have. And I did that with like 5 or 6 different co-working spaces. And at the time, Lighthouse, and still now, Lighthouse Labs had a co-working space called DevHub. And so I reached out because of that. I reached out because I wanted to be like a community organizer for DevHub. And so I emailed the boss, the CEO of the company, and I thought that was great because it wasn't too big at the time. There were only about 30 people on the staff in Toronto. So, okay, good enough. I'm going to email the CEO and see what he says. And I emailed him and said, hey, rumor has it you guys might need a community manager for your co-working space. Here's a couple cool things that I've done in my career. Would you be open for a 20-minute chat? I live 5 minutes away. I can just pop in tomorrow or something like that if you like. And he said, okay, well, we're actually hiring for a similar role, but we're pretty much in the final stages of that right now. So it might not work for that, but come on in and we'll have a chat. And so I came in the next day, and it was funny because I had just got back from Asia. So I literally went to Winners across the street and bought like nice clothes because I didn't have any clothes. And I put them on in the bathroom, and then I went in to meet the guy. And oh God. And it was great. We had a really great chat. He gave me a tour of the whole space. And this is what was really cool, because I had done a lot of work in the past couple months, going to all these different events, meeting people, volunteering for stuff. As we walked around, I saw people that I knew, and I would say, oh, hey, how's it going? And they would say, oh, hey, Izzy, how's it going? It's so nice to see you here. What are you doing? And, we'd be like, oh, Izzy's here for, just to have a chat about the job. And we'd go around and, basically every person that he introduced me to already knew me, and he was kind of blown away. How do you know everybody? And the one thing that was incredible is he opens up the boardroom door, and there's 2 guys in there. One of them, his name is Chris. And so he opens that door, and these 2 guys are there, and he goes, hey, Izzy, this is Chris and, someone else. And these are these are one of our career people here at Lighthouse Labs. And he's like, oh, Izzy, how are you? And like, again, the same thing. He knew who I was too. And this guy is like, how do you know everybody? And so we go back and chat, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I just, I've talked to people, I've volunteered at things. And so to him, it kind of felt like I was already almost part of the team.
Yeah.
Because I knew everybody. And so we had a chat, and it turned out that, the community thing that I was looking for, the actual role they were hiring wasn't a good fit, because it was more like a co-working space manager, where they were looking for someone to manage the logistical stuff of the space. And that's not what I'm looking for. I want to talk to people. I want to organize people.
Yeah.
So what happened then is we chatted for a little bit. He said, okay, well, let me get back to you and see what happens. 1 or 2 days later, he gave me a call, and he said, okay, so at the moment, we don't have anything to hire you full-time, but would you be open to doing something with us part-time? And I said, well, part-time doesn't really work for me, because I'm looking for something full-time. Like, that means I'm going to have to go find another job. And he said, okay, let me think about this. I'll talk to some people. I'll get back to you. And then like 2 or 3 days later, he talks to his people. He gets back to me again, and he says, okay, Izzy, so we managed to, to shift some things around. And I think you would be incredible as a community manager for Lighthouse Labs. I would like to hire you for a full-time position as our new community manager. And he, on the spot, like, created that job and hired me to do it. And I was like, oh my God, that is incredible. Like, yes, absolutely. I'm in. I'm so excited. And I was with that team for about 2 years, for actually exactly 2 years. And it was, I think most people in the Toronto tech scene know me from that role, because I was so, I did internal community with our students, but I also managed community externally and formed partnerships and went to all the events and that kind of thing.
You're the goat at that, man. That job for you was perfect. Your story about knowing everyone at that place and, hey, Izzy, reminds me of my new favorite quote by Emmanuel Acho in Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And he says that proximity breeds care and distance breeds fear. And just by everyone being like, hey, Izzy, it creates that proximity. He's close, everything. It breeds care. Like, I want to work with this guy. Everyone likes him. He feels part of the family. And I think that really set you up for greater things that you're doing right now. Before we talk about Job Hacking 101 and Clear Career, which I'm a huge fan of, you had a story where you were Pikachu at the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or S&P 500. What happened, and how did you become Pikachu and appear on national television?
Yeah. So, okay. One like career hack I love to give people is to go volunteer for as many things as you can at the events and organizations and, whatever that you're interested in, to meet the right people. So I was doing exactly that. I was going and when I was between jobs, I was volunteering for all these tech events in Toronto. And there was one that I had missed. There was this group of tech events called Tech Week that would happen in multiple cities all around, North America. And I missed the Toronto one because it was when I was in Asia. So I saw that the next one was coming up in New York City. And I thought, okay, I've got to go here. And so I took a bus down to New York City. I emailed them to become a volunteer. And I stayed with one of my friends who lived in New York for a couple of days. And so the interesting thing that happened there was most of the volunteers were just people who would show up for like one day or one afternoon because they live there. For me, I came for that purpose. Like, I came to New York City to volunteer for this event. So I was there for every single event, and the organizers and stuff like that got to know me because I was just at everything. And so, they got to know me and they got to start liking me and things. So we developed a little relationship. And at one point, one of the organizers comes up to me and says, okay, Izzy, there's something happening tomorrow morning, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. Are you in? And so I thought, okay, sure. Like, I'm in, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I show up at 7 a.m. in Times Square. And they basically say, okay, so we're going to go on the NASDAQ stock market opening ceremony on national television on 4 different networks and on the Times Square Jumbotron for Tech Week. And we want you to be in a giant Pikachu costume and go and like be one of the people who rings the bell. And I was like, this is the best moment of my entire life. It's all, like, I don't think anything could be better than this. And so that's exactly what happened. I got to be on national TV wearing the giant Pikachu. And I remember having my phone inside, like taking an insider view from inside the costume, like looking at the looking at the
Yes.
studio. And yeah, there's like videos of it. It's awesome. It was one of the best moments of my life.
I saw a picture of that when it happened, and I was so happy because it's you, man. You are like lightning of happiness. You're like Pikachu positivity and everything. I was so happy for you.
Nice.
Nowadays, your career, obviously you have a job, but clear career and job seeking has become in some ways a new career for you because you're so good at it. You've been helping people ever since I know you, pretty much. You've been helping people get jobs, and you've helped hundreds, thousands over the years, and now people are seeking you to the point that you created your own consulting, like job seeking company. I took your course. We took it with a bunch of people last October last year.
Yeah.
And while I didn't want to get a job, I took it because I wanted to use those skills to be able to get jobs in my industry, corporate comedy shows or corporate workshops at these big companies or smaller startups. And the language is pretty similar. It's not necessarily what you say, although it's important. It's how you say it, how you position it, knowing the right people. And as you said, you can correct me about this statistic, but approximately 70% of jobs are in the informal job market. And even if you find the jobs online, maybe somebody else like already has that job. They were just forced to put it online for regulatory purposes. And you've been a genius, as I like to call you, the King Midas of job seeking. Every application you touch becomes a job. Where did this passion come from, and why did you want to now do it professionally? You've helped thousands of people now.
Yeah. So as long as I as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be some sort of teacher, mentor, something like that. And I had some great positive experiences from some of my teachers in high school, some of my teachers and professors in university. And I just didn't know what I wanted to teach. I'm like, okay, I guess I could teach history or something like that, but I never really resonated too much with that. So my original plan for my career after university was to go and do teachers college. And then I saw that that was super competitive and that there weren't too many jobs and stuff. So I decided to go and, go off on a tangent and work at U of T in education, just not as a teacher. And it's interesting, over the course of my career, I found this interesting trend line that was hard for me to associate and realize. But a lot of the jobs that I've had have been in education. When I was at U of T, I was working at an educational institution. When I was at Lighthouse Labs, I was working for a coding boot camp, which was, a school to teach people how to code. And in that time, I've always liked teaching people things, whether it was how to build a website, how to do this, how to do that. And so over time, I found that the techniques that I developed for myself for looking for jobs is something I'm really good at teaching, and I really enjoy teaching. And so it really started probably in like 2015, probably 2015, where I started this Facebook community called Clear Career. And it was just like a peer mentorship community. Over time, we had about 1,000 people that had joined that group, and people were sharing jobs, people were sharing opportunities, people were helping each other with all these different things. And then I ran some workshops. I was on a couple of podcasts, and essentially I borrowed, a lot of like EQ things around how to talk to people and how to be personable, and some skills with writing on how to write good emails and how to, come across authentically, and then matched those with some kind of really cool technological things like, tools that marketers and salespeople use. Salespeople use tools to prospect people and find their contact information so that they can sell them things. Marketers use tools to see when people are opening their emails and what they're clicking on and that kind of thing in order to figure out what they want to sell them. So I kind of borrowed from a lot of these different industries and mashed them together in this course where I teach people how to essentially avoid going after the jobs that 400 or 500 people are applying for on job boards, and instead make a list of companies that you're personally interested in working for. Really get a sense and sit down and think about what it is that you want to do, the things you love, the things you don't love, the things that are deal breakers for you, and
core values,
and your core values, and be much more intentional about your job search and what you want to do. And from there, I started this course that helps people do that. And I found that over the years, I had been doing this as a volunteer thing, and I'd just been helping people here and there, where I'd sit down with someone and we'd write an email, and it was always amazing how like mind blown people were that, oh crap, this person read my email like 5 minutes after I sent it to them. This was my idol. Like, I never thought that this person would ever talk to me, let alone reply and have a conversation and like have an interview with me. And that kind of reaction just was so amazing for me. I loved empowering people to just, hey, look, all of these people are just humans. They're, they eat cornflakes for breakfast, and they crap twice a day. And, these aren't like unreachable people. You just have to put in the desire to do that and reach out. And when you do, there's that great saying, ask and you shall receive. If people don't know what you're looking for, if you never try in the first place, you're never going to get it.
Yeah, to me, it's been mind blowing, because over the years, this last year, we've gotten a lot closer and worked on some projects together. But in previous years, we've met up once or twice a year, and you've been giving me tips in these past years. And every time I would meet up with you, it would immediately bring me dividends. Mm-hmm. And now I've perfected it through the years with your tips, experience, and your course, to the point that I've said this on my stories and other places. Like last year in December, we had the most successful month ever, pretty much. We had like $15,000 in corporate events, and it's not one thing. It's like little things that go a long way. All the techniques coming off authentically, knowing how to write it, how to cold email people, knowing if they wrote it, how to follow up, to the point that now I've recommended you to like tens of people, to my sister, my other sister, my cousin. Like, you're basically like my family coach, everything. Like, I want every single Latino, immigrant, Canadian should take your course. And what I tell my friends and on my Instagram is that it's not like a one-time thing. These tools will help you like forever. And at the end of the day, like you and I are very in similar businesses. We're in the relationship business of helping people become confident, funny, confident speakers. You're in the relationships business of helping people get their dream job or accelerate their career. You're also really, really good at helping people negotiate their salaries and other things. And these little tools go a long way because it's the same principles that you can implement, obviously, to get a job, but also, in my case, to apply to a comedy festival, to get corporate comedy shows, to win a grant, to convince like somebody to do this on an email, to sell ideas. And if you write too much, nobody's going to write it. If it's boring, if you write too much, nobody's going to read it. If it's boring, nobody's going to read it. Little things that you've taught me, like hyperlinks, pictures in the email, concise, being like just the negotiating techniques. It goes such a long way that it's not just for this job. Even if you have a job, you can get a better job. Even if you have a better job, you can negotiate a better salary for what's right. And why I vouch for this so much is because as immigrants, sometimes we're like, oh, they offered me $12. I have to be grateful because this is not my country, so I'm gonna take it. But then it's like, no, I'm really good at what I do, and I need to get paid the fair share. But if I don't know where to look at, or if this is like socially or culturally acceptable, or if it's mean or rude, it's very hard. So I find that through your experience and you being Canadian, you really helped out hundreds of people, and I'm really grateful that you decided to take this career path, because obviously it's in line with education, but what you and I both really love, which is community.
Yeah, 100%. It is so fulfilling for me to see people, pursue things that they wouldn't have pursued just because they didn't feel confident. I love working with people and just having a conversation. Like, let's say I work with someone and do a resume rewrite with them. The resume rewrite call isn't just about fixing your resume, it's about crafting your identity. Like a lot of the time, your version of your identity is really self-deprecating. A lot of people that I've worked with don't really see their value, don't really understand. They feel like they're not worth it, they're not worthy, they're not valuable. And then when we have a conversation to change and like better craft their professional statement, their experience, their skills, we go and like drill down and pull out and extract information that they forgot about, accomplishments that they forgot about, and then quantify them in a way that makes it really easy for employers to go, oh, wow, you saved your last company $1 million last year. And these are like things that they left off their resume just because they forgot or they didn't realize that was a thing. And there's so many instances like that. And after having those kinds of sessions, people feel so much more confident on how to talk about themselves, which is one of the so key like parts of this whole program and the relationships that I have with people.
You hit the nail on the head. It's confidence. We're also in the confidence business. From my courses and your courses, the most common feedback is I feel more confident. And that shows in an interview, in a presentation, in anything really. I think we all want to be more confident to really show what we can bring to the company. And culturally, sometimes as Latinos or other cultures, like we're like, no, I don't want to say this because it's going to sound cocky. And I don't want people to think I'm arrogant. So then we don't say what we have really accomplished. It may be like saving the company $1 million. It may be many other things. But if you can't touch them and make them tangible and communicate them effectively, it's going to be hard for people to understand what you're really worth, especially when you're comparing it to 100 other resumes. It's complicated.
If you don't believe in yourself, why would someone who you're trying to apply for a job with going to believe in you?
Yeah.
If you don't believe and in your value, other people aren't going to believe in it either. So it's really, really important to you've been battered down by the job market. You've been battered down by failure, by people not hiring you, sending you rejection emails and things like that. But you have to really sit back and refocus and see your value, re-extract your value and what you're good at, and pitch your best self. Because if you are confident in your abilities, other people will see that. It is so visible when someone is passionate, when someone is confident, that those are the qualities that get you hired.
Totally. It shows in your voice, it shows in your body language. And it's not like something that happens night to day, but when you start seeing your resume transform, and when you coach people on, tell me a little bit about yourself, and you can say it so much that you can memorize it and really own it, tell me what you've accomplished. All these little things go a long way, because it's like speaking. You stop sounding like a robot and second guessing yourself. People can see your eyes. You're like, oh, and I was also a good analyst. You stop sounding like a robot and start sounding more like yourself while owning it at the same time. I think that's super important. Before we close this interview, I want to ask you, you're married to Laura. Shout out to Laura. She's Colombian Canadian. And I'm so happy that you're surrounded by more Latinos. Some of the best people in the world, they say. What's your favorite part of being married to a Latina, to being immersed with Latino culture, and what things does Laura do that are really Latino that we can know of and laugh about? Is it the music? Is it the dancing? Is it the food?
I think there's a lot of things there. So she was born in Colombia and then immigrated here when she was, in her teens. So a lot of her formative years were here, but she does have like a good chunk of her childhood when she was back there. Yeah. And so she doesn't have a huge Latin community herself that she's very engaged with, but I do get a lot of culture from her family, from her sister and her mom and things like that. And, I've definitely learned how to make really good arepas, and they have to be a very specific, perfect way for it to get the stamp of approval from mom and from Laura. And and there's lots of Latinx foods that I love. My favorite is actually a Venezuelan food called cachapas. Those are, if there's Venezuelans out there, I absolutely love cachapas. And I think I've had some friends. I've learned Spanish when I was in high school and then more in university. I am someone who's kind of comfortable enough that when I go to Mexico or when I go, somewhere in a Spanish-speaking country, I can get by. I'm a little bit more self-conscious if I'm not prepared for it.
Yeah.
But I'm enough to survive, I would say.
How many languages do you speak? Turkish, English, French, Spanish,
and Mandarin. I'm like beginner Mandarin, but yeah.
Wow, man, that's impressive. Izzy, we've come to the last question, and that's a champagne question that we always ask our guests.
Sure.
And that is, if we were to meet a year from now with a bottle of champagne, what are we celebrating in Izzy's life, 2022?
Great question. I would say we are celebrating, for my life, that I have completely switched my career to career coaching and my online courses, and that I've paid off any debt that Laura and I have together. Those are the two big things I think that we'd be celebrating.
I love it. Well, you, my friend, have no debt to society for sure. You're a great man. You're so positive, kind. As I said in the beginning, you've made everyone's life better just by having you around us. And I really thank you for being here, for the positive impact you've had on my life, on my career. And I'm so excited about our friendship and future projects. This is Stephan Dyer, Izzy Piyale-Sheard, and this was the Stephan Dyer podcast.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Gracias por escuchar el Stephan Dyer podcast. Arrivederci, my people.